And I want to comment on one thing that I talked to Tom about it before, and I just want to, just food for thought when we leave before we come back to have a discussion on the budget. We discussed about capital money going forward, and after the last hearing, a few of our wonderful residents caught me in the lobby and didn't hold back on some of their feelings on some of the things that were said, which I greatly appreciate, because I'm not going to sit here and say that my eyes are the way the world is, and seeing things through other people's eyes tend to help me quite a bit. But one of the things that came to mind about putting the money aside for capital, which I mentioned to Tom before the meeting, is what our wonderful state legislator has done with the pension system, where they see money sitting there and it's a piggy bank to take from. And my biggest concern with putting money aside with capital now has become, how do we make sure that money gets allocated to what we're going to put it towards? I don't want to see us build a fund that in 2 or 3 years somebody decides a little pet project they want to do because it makes their neighbor better, or it makes their backyard look better, so we can do this and the money's there, so let's use it. Just like we said before about the money we used on the school. Well, yes, it was money we had, but it's still tax money that came from the residents. So when we see that money sitting there, we kind of look at, well, it's not money we didn't have to raise, we didn't have to do anything special to get it, it was sitting there, but it's still our tax dollars. So one of the things I'd like to see if we're going to do a capital program is to see an actual depreciation schedule of our equipment that we're going to replace, timelines and values on what we want to do, and actually instead of just putting money aside and hoping it'll be there when we need it, come up with a true plan. And I'm not so sure that this year is the time to do it. As I had mentioned to Tom before, we're already in May, there's 7 months left to come up with this for next year if we really want to do capital, but the way I'm feeling about this right now is I don't think putting money in the budget and hoping it'll be there for when we need it is the appropriate way to attack this. So I'd like to leave that as food for thought when we revisit.
No, I mean, I think it's a very valid point, but I still go back to the fact that I think it would be a very good plan to make sure that it gets spent on what we want it to be spent on. But I don't think that you can get away from the fact that ultimately we have projects and equipment that's going to need to be replaced, and we're going to have to pay for it one way or another. I think it's better.
I'd like to see
make
it
sure that it's very
quantified.
clear.
I'd like
so
to
that
not
we
just be,
can
we're
quantify it.
putting this
I
money in for that. And
totally
I think
agree with that. And the $100,000, just because you mentioned it again, just it wasn't. You're right. It wasn't. It's not free money. It was
Right.
money that was raised from taxes, but it was raised for a specific purpose, and the purpose was to maintain and acquire open space.
I have no qualms over it got done.
Ultimately, that's how we
see
spent
done,
it.
but-
So I just wanted to clarify that.
Mr. McLean, how can we guarantee the public that what we put the capital fund in there for will go towards what it's intended? Is there a way to get around that?
Well, I think probably the better way to ask would be to ask the CFO when he comes in, if there's a way to do that. But typically, when one passes an ordinance to do something, one is always at the mercy of the next governing body changing their mind. But if there's a particular way to dedicate that, you have to probably ask the CFO when he comes in.
Okay.
Well, I'd be curious too, I don't know that we're permitted to do this, but if we could tie it up and say in 5 years we need this, let's buy a 5-year CD so that in 5 years we earn some money off it and it's not just sitting in an account. Something like that, I would feel more secure going forward with it, because I agree that borrowing money and paying interest is not the right way to do it. I certainly believe that we should be planning ahead for expenses. I just don't want to see us build a nest egg for somebody else who is up for election in the fall. It's really important, and I can get a whole lot of votes if I put a swimming pool in at Ocean Road Park. I'm just saying that we see the way things tend to go, and I'd like to know the money is designated where it needs to be, and that's my biggest concern. So I just wanted to throw that out there so we can lament until we come back.
We'll take that. That's food for thought. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Butch.
You have a